Hi, my name is Saunders McNear, and I'm currently a senior at Randolph College, and this is the research project I have been working on the last couple of months. So, as you can see, I'm looking at undergraduate students and how they navigate through their college campuses in reference to sexuality. Navigation in this project focuses on participation. So, for participation, it looks at the things that students are comfortably engaging themselves in and things that they are not engaging themselves in due to the uncomfortable aspect. And so, comfortability is the focus of this project. And so, with comfortability, it's looking at the ways you choose to be authentically visible with your sexuality and the moments you're choosing to not be visible with your sexuality and why that could be. And so this is looking at the level of interaction students have with their educational institutions and the ways that it affects their academic success. Students are asked to pick the class year they currently reside in, and so as I stated earlier, that goes down from 2020 down to 2023. And so most of those responses contain digits within the 40s. However, 2023 has 24 students responding. Students are also asked what colleges they currently attend, and so this survey was sent to 8 colleges and universities that currently reside in Virginia. And so those universities are American University, Christopher Newport University, Norfolk State University, Old Dominion University, Virginia Wesleyan University, and University of Lynchburg. And the survey also went to Randolph College. Students' racial and ethnic identities are very important for the research because it helps me understand the students' demographics, which will help me read their interaction with their sexuality very differently. As I found in my research last fall, students who are members of racial and ethnic communities oftentimes have negative interaction with their sexualities due to the lack of support systems within their racial communities, as well as the lack of support within their sexual communities. Support system for this research project is looking at who knows about the individual's sexual identity and how they support them, and so where they're supported at. As you can see, 103 responses are everyone knows and everyone's supportive. And so as you get down to the lower numbers, that shows that only a few people know about the individual sexual identity. And so as the questions go out, it's based off how, like, who they are comfortable telling their sexual identity to. There are two pie charts on this slide, as you can see. The first referencing the individual sexual identity, and the second being how their sexual identity affects their daily life. And so in the next slide, I'll get more into the second pie chart and what that means in readings. But for the first one, it's pretty self-explanatory. I gave them a couple of options with on the sexuality spectrum, and with also a box of other. And so they pick whichever one they identify with. And then for the second pie chart, it talks about, do they think their sexual identity affects their daily life? And so an example of that is, as a gay male, does that affect the way you interact with your daily life and how people interact with you? As stated in the last slide, this one talks about sexual identity and the effects on their daily life. And so the first chart, you see that it asks how positively does the sexual identity affect their daily life. And so students have different answers ranging on from a 0, which could mean they don't think it affects their daily life or they don't understand what the question could mean. And so 10 ranging from this is like the best, I have pretty positive interactions with it. And so on the second one, it says how negatively. And so most of them, as in the first one, answer 10 for positive and 0 for negative because they don't really think they have a negative reaction for sexuality in their daily life. However, on the second graph, you see that 5 of them have answered 8. And so because this doesn't go into depth with what the numbers they have given mean for them, there's no really to really determine what the 8 could mean. However, it could just be levels of anxiety with interacting in public spaces and are not feeling comfortable to display themselves outside of their homes, etc. You're looking at two pie charts here. The first being gender identity that the individual chooses to identify as. 3 categories: man, woman, non-binary. And so the second pie chart deals with how the individual feels that their gender identity affects their daily life. And so as a couple of slides ago, I'll go in depth with this one in the next slide concerning what the gender identity and how that affects their daily life. As a couple slides ago for sexual identity and the effects on daily life, we're looking at the same thing here for gender identity. So as you can see with the first one, it says how positively gender identity affects daily life, and you have 10 again being the leader here, and a couple students answering 0, which 7 of them. And so that could mean, as I stated before, they don't understand what the question means, or they just don't think it has any really effect. They don't really know how to gauge that. And so on the second chart, you have negatively effects. And so You have students answering zero, and that could just be they don't understand what the question means, or they think it has no real interaction with their daily life at all. However, as you get higher up with the chart, you see that students are answering 7, 8, and 9, and 10. And so, what that could mean, as I stated before, is that students just have high anxiety in public spaces. They are not comfortable expressing their gender identity in public spaces or around people they do not know or who are not supportive of them. So this is really when we begin to get into the non-academic participation for the research project. And so as you can see, there are 111 students who are involved in student clubs on campus and 43 of them who are not. And so I put a couple of clubs below the ones that were used the most or students were active in the most. However, there were so many more responses from students because some students are involved in so many things that they kind of are operating in very different student clubs. And so I'll get more in depth in that with the next slide and how they're comfortable being involved in these student clubs. As kind of the same ordeal with other slides, you see we have two charts here. The first being how positively do students think that sexual identity affects their involvement with on-campus clubs. And so the numbers are spread out here. You have 0 with 23 and you have 10 with 25. And so again, students can say that they are having very positive interaction with student clubs and their sexuality, and 0 could mean that they do not understand the question or they're not having really great experiences. And so the leader here is 5, and so that's really neutral, and so that could mean that students don't want to say they're having a great experience, but they also don't say they're having a negative experience because they may not know for sure yet. And so with the second chart here, you see that the numbers are also spread out. However, 10 has 73, and so this is about comfortability in sexual identity in student clubs. And so students could be very comfortable, they have a great experience and a positive experience, and then however you see that 0 has 8. Again, that can mean they don't understand the question really, or they're just not really comfortable in student clubs at all. The next branch on non-academic participation is leadership organizations. And so leadership organizations and clubs are split up because they do not have the same weight associated with them. Student clubs generally have an aura of students joining because they have the same similar interests or is more fun-filled. And leadership organizations require a lot of responsibility. And so as you see with the second chart up here, you have leadership organizations such as Student Government, Black Student Alliance, our organizations, activities councils, orientation leaders, residence life. And so these roles take a lot more visibility with the campus and hold a lot more responsibility to be student leaders. And so as you see with the first chart, you have 75 students who are involved with leadership organization and 79 of them who are not. Here we have two different charts again. The first being how positively does student sexual identity affect their involvement with leadership organizations. And so as you can see, the numbers are spread out again. Many of the leaders are 0, 5, and 10. And so as stated in 2 slides ago, 5 is just a neutral number, and it could be that they don't think they're having a really positive experience, but they also don't think they're having a really negative one. And 10, as I've stated before, is just a great experience overall. On the second chart, you see that it's about how comfortable they are in displaying their sexual identity in these leadership organizations. And so 60 of them are answering 10, which means they are super comfortable. And 11 of them are answering 0 because they either do not understand the question or they are not comfortable at all displaying their sexual identity. So the next branch of our non-academic participation is Greek life. And so you have 66 students who are involved in Greek organizations, 85 who are not, and 3 who are in the process of being initiated. And so as you see below are the Greek organizations that students are involved in. And I have condensed this a little bit because many of them are in the same Greek organization and I didn't want to put the same ones up there multiple times. Here we have 2 charts as stated in many other slides before. The first being how positively students' sexual identity affects their involvement in Greek organizations. And so 10 is being super positive. We have 31 students who are claiming that. 0 is how they're not having a good time at all, or they just don't understand the question. That's 20 students. On the second chart, you see that they are asking about how comfortable students are in these organizations. You have 13 of them answering 0, which could mean they don't understand the question, or they're not comfortable at all. And then you have 52 of them answering 10, which means they are super comfortable within these Greek organizations. They are having the time of their lives. The last branch of our non-academic participation is sports. And so I've asked 2 different sports questions for students, the first being high school sports and the second being collegiate sports. And so for the first one, they're asked if they played sports and if they were on the varsity team. And so for playing sports, 121 students answered yes, they played sports in high school. And from that 121 students that answered yes, only 101 of them played a varsity sport in high school. And so as you can see, based off the collegiate sport graph, the same varsity sports were labeled for each of them from football down to soccer. There's also a category for other for students to put in other for them. And so as you see from collegiate sports, you have 102 of them that do not play sports at all in college and 52 of them that did play sports. And so as you can see by the graph, for people who are on sports teams, none of them were in football. You have basketball being the leader here, and then the second runner-up is soccer. And so as you on the next slide, you will guess what it's going to be. It's positively affects and comfortability. And so I may be asking about two different realms of sporting culture for students, but and only focusing on collegiate engagement because I'm trying to see the sporting culture they had in high school and what they brought with them to colleges. And so as you can see, the first chart talks about how positive their sexual identity affects their collegiate engagement with sports and on their teams. And so 33 of them are answering 10, 13 are answering 0, and again you have 12 at 5. And so 5 again is the neutral response. They don't think it has a positive or a negative effect. They're just really in the middle. And so on the second chart here, you see how comfortable students are in displaying. 44 of them are answering 10, which means they are very comfortable. 9 of them are answering 0, and 7 are answering 5. Again, 9 could be answering 0 because they don't think it has really an effect, or they don't understand the question. Again, 7 are answering 5 because they don't think it has an effect and they don't want to go either other way. As you can see, there's no text on this slide because I think it's far easier for me to explain my future thought process with this research project in an audio than a text box. So for me, I think I would really like to work and focus on minority students, and I mean minority by racial and ethnic minorities, and how they are being academically successful in colleges and universities in reference to their sexual identity. And so, as I stated earlier, racial and ethnic minorities oftentimes do not have support systems within their racial and ethnic communities for their sexual identities. And when they get into the realms of their sexual orientation, those communities, they are oftentimes not supported because of their racial and ethnic identities. And so I think it would be very great for me to dive into that a little bit more and to add to the literature that's already out there about it. So again, my research project focuses on how sexual minorities engage in themselves within their education institution and what they choose to participate in reference to the levels of comfort they feel. And so I have concluded my interviews for this topic. I have also closed my survey, and I will be working on doing a write-up towards the end. I have really appreciated you listening to my presentation, and also I've loved the fact that I've gotten to work with this past semester has really helped me understand what I would like to do in the future and what I really am working towards.